In this video, we're going to finish designing our one-piece swimsuit that we started in the last video. And we're going to pick it up at the front crotch that we left off in the last video. And then in the next video, we're going to learn stretch factorization for this fabric on this design. And now we go to the front crotch crease. We have a lot of ruffles in the fabric here. And what I want to do for here is at our crotch crease right here, we want to mark off an amount and we want to bring it in a little closer. We're going to diminish the crotch width the same as the shoulder, the waist, the side seam, and the shoulder strap. And we're going to bring our mark up a little more here, and we're going to bring it a little higher. And since the pattern is on the half, what we do to the right is going to happen to the left. On the pattern, from point 3, I'm going to bring it in 1.25 inches as I marked it. Give it a little shrinkage. And on my crotch width here, I'm going to give this 1.25 inches. And trace down my hip at the stitching line down to my adjustment point here, and just make us a stitching line, and we can make a new trace. So we have adjusted our swimsuit. We're going to clean up our lines after we fold out the pattern. And if I added my elastic at the crotch width, connect it to our hip curve up here. So our design starts to take shape. And there's our pattern. And we're going to trim our bust dart because in the construction, we're going to stretch that in. And I'm going to show you that because we want to maintain the integrity of the bust dart so that we can use it in our design and it will fit the body and there will be a place in the fabric for the bust. And now we're going to make the same adjustments on the back as we did on the front. Only the back is a little different because we're going to add our hardware that I mentioned earlier. That is pretty standard. And we have the keyhole. And we're going to adjust the shoulder seam. I'm going to cut this from here to here, and I'm going to add this amount to the back and make this one piece. So now my seam is going to be here. On the shoulder seam, at the front, we measured that it was 1.25 inches too far. So we're going to deduct that amount from our shoulder seam. We measure off the 1.25 inches, and this is our stitching line. And we add back a seam allowance. Generally, swimsuits are sewn in with 1/4 of seam allowance. But we're going to use 3/8 to stay consistent with the draft. And we match the back with the front, and we find our stitching line here in the front, and we mark that, and we follow the line down. We measure it out 1.25 inches, and we add our seam allowance, and we add it to the other side, and we add our seam allowance to the top of our mark. And this is our cutting line for the increase in the back. At this point, we can use our armscye curve to draw in our cutting line to the elastic point at the top of the back shoulder, and we can blend that in and give that a nice curve. And we can decide on the back for the razor back right here, we can measure down 2 inches, mark our cutting line, add the seam allowance, and then we take the hardware that we're going to use and we will model it in the place where it will be connected. And this area right here is going to be our fold line. And then we're going to trace it here. That's going to be the end of it. And we're going to add the 3/8 elastic, and we're going to draw a smooth neck edge curve to the shoulder seam from the cutting edge to the cutting edge. And on the keyhole, in my case, I'm going to make that just a little bit shorter. It's a little wide. So I'm going to measure it out, and on the pattern, I'm going to adjust it and change it. And bear in mind that we are going to fold out this pattern because we don't know, well, maybe we do, what fabric we're going to use. We're going to get to stretch factorization very soon, but we're going to fold out that amount in the pattern. So if I measure out from the center back to the edge of my keyhole, I have right at 4 inches. And then on my pattern, I'm going to measure that off. When I fold my pattern, the amount of stretch in the fabric, it's going to really get small. So we're going to bring this in a little more than 4 inches. I'm gonna give it 2. And then when the fabric stretches out again, it's gonna go back to its regular position that it's in. So you'll see, I'll show you. As we have measured the keyhole, we're going to measure off 2 inches in the center, and we're going to mark the waist point in the back from the side seam over to the waist point, and you can see that we have our back darts marked here, which we're going to use these in a minute for our butt crease right here. So we mark the back, and I'm going to raise my back just a little bit. I'm going to raise it 1 inch there and add my elastic allowance here. We add the elastic allowance, and we take the ruler and we draw in the keyhole and we walk the back waist point down the front hip and draw in our back hip connection. We add our 3/8 elastic allowance. In our measurements that we took on the back, we measured down the butt crease measurement on our buttocks where the buttocks meets the leg, and we recorded that measurement, and in the draft we named it 0.5. This amount is our coverage area that we may want to adjust. If we adjust it, we want to meet it with the side hip, and we take our chalk, and if we want to do a different style, like a Brazilian or a thong or whatever kind of design, you want to take your chalk and mark it, and we're going to draft the back butt crease on the pattern, but we're going to fold it out, so we're going to have to blend it back in later. We adjust our butt crease with our crotch width, walk the crotch, the back crotch together, and we find our stitching line. We add in our cutting line, and we know that this is 0.5, and that is our butt crease. And we measure down to find the measurement of our butt crease that we measured in taking the measurements for the swimsuit. And we know that that's our buttocks crease. And we're going to shape this area. We want to keep this groove because that is our coverage. And we take our ruler and we use the other side of the ruler and make it rounded up to our cutting line, and we blend in here, and that is our back for now. And that concludes the making the pattern of the one-piece swimsuit. In the next video, we're going to learn stretch factorization and folding for stretch. And I'll see you in the next video.